You are the Emperor of Rome. You are 17 years old, and you have just poisoned your stepbrother. Not personally. You are the Emperor of Rome. You do not do things personally. You have people for that. A woman named Locusta, a professional poisoner kept on retainer by the imperial household, prepared the dose. A servant administered it at dinner. Britannicus fell from his chair mid-sentence, convulsed, and died on the floor of the dining room, while the other guests looked at their plates and said nothing, because saying something when the Emperor of Rome has just killed someone at dinner is not a thing that people do if they want to continue living. You are 17. You have been emperor for 3 years. You have already killed your stepbrother. Your mother arranged your position. Your mother controls everything. Your mother is the most powerful woman in Rome, and she intends to remain so. You have other plans. But first, Sporus. You were born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus in 37 AD, in the town of Antium, on the coast south of Rome. Your father is Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus, a man described by contemporary sources as cruel, dishonest, and thoroughly unpleasant in almost every documented interaction. He dies when you were 3. This is, by most accounts, the kindest thing he ever did for you. Your mother is Agrippina the Younger. She is the great-granddaughter of Augustus, the sister of Caligula, and one of the most politically formidable women Rome ever produced. She is also, by the testimony of almost every ancient source who writes about her, terrifying. Not in the theatrical way, in the specific, cold, competent way of someone who has identified exactly what she wants and has removed every obstacle between herself and it with the systematic efficiency of someone clearing a path through a forest. What she wants is power. What stands between her and power is the fact that women cannot be emperor of Rome. What she does about this is, she gets close to the Emperor Claudius, marries him, adopts you as his son, and then, when the timing is correct, has him killed with a plate of poisoned mushrooms. You become emperor at 16. Your mother expects to run everything from behind the throne. She is not wrong, initially. For the first years of your reign, Agrippina is everywhere, present at audiences, consulted on decisions, her image literally beside yours on the coinage. Roman historians will later call this period the Quinquennium Neronis, the 5 good years of Nero's reign, and credit your advisors Seneca and Burrus for the competent governance that characterizes it. They do not credit your mother, because your mother is a woman, and Roman historians do not credit women for things they do. But your mother is doing most of it, and you are watching. And you are 17 years old, and you are bored, and you are curious, and you are, underneath everything, the son of a cruel, dishonest father and a ruthless, brilliant mother, and you are beginning to understand exactly who you are. Here is who you are. You love music, not as a hobby, as a vocation, as the thing you would choose above everything if choosing were available to you. You play the lyre, you sing, you write poetry, you compose. You want to perform publicly, in theaters, before real audiences, and you want them to respond not because you are the Emperor of Rome, but because you are genuinely good. This creates a specific problem. Roman emperors do not perform in theaters. Roman emperors do not sing in public. Roman tradition holds that the stage is for professionals, which is to say, for people of low social status, and that an emperor on stage is an emperor debasing himself, debasing the office, debasing Rome. You disagree. You disagree so thoroughly that you have a theater built and perform in it, and you require your audience to applaud, which they do, because again, you are the Emperor of Rome. But also because you are genuinely talented, and the applause is not entirely coerced. You race chariots at the circus. You compete in the Olympics. You win, always, because the judges are not stupid enough to let the Emperor of Rome lose. But also, Roman sources grudgingly admit, because you are not unskilled. And then there is the matter of who you love. His name is Sporus. He is a young freedman in the imperial household, and the sources describe him as exceptionally beautiful, with a particular resemblance, noted by multiple contemporary writers, to your dead wife Poppaea Sabina. Poppaea Sabina, who died during your second pregnancy, when you kicked her in the abdomen. The sources disagree on whether this was intentional or accidental, but she died of it. And the fact that the sources need to discuss whether an emperor killing his pregnant wife was intentional or accidental tells you everything you need to know about what kind of emperor you are by this point in the story. But Sporus. You have Sporus castrated. Then you marry him. Publicly. With a wedding ceremony. With a veil. With a dowry. With wedding songs. With witnesses. With all the formal apparatus of a Roman marriage performed completely and legally, except that the person wearing the veil is a man, or was before you decided otherwise. You call him Sabina. You call him your wife, in public, at formal occasions. The court accepts this with the specific, careful blankness of people who have learned that the alternative to acceptance is the kind of attention they do not want. The Roman historian Suetonius records this. Cassius Dio records this. Both of them record it with the barely contained outrage of men who find it deeply disturbing and cannot stop writing about it. Suetonius notes, with a specificity that suggests he felt this detail was important, that you went about with Sporus in the same way that husbands go about with wives, that you treated him, in all the public ways that marriage produces public behavior, as your wife. This is documented. This happened. And it is not the end. Because then there is Pythagoras, or Doryphorus. The sources use both names. He is another man in your court, an imperial freedman, physically imposing by ancient description. And you marry him too. Not as husband this time, as wife. You are the wife. You wear the veil. You make the sounds. Suetonius is very specific about this, with the particular specificity of a man who wishes he were less specific, of a bride on her wedding night. 2 marriages. One where you are the husband. One where you are the wife. Both public, both documented, both performed with complete ceremony in front of witnesses who wrote them down. Suetonius writes, he so prostituted his own chastity that after defiling almost every part of his body, he at last devised a kind of game in which, covered with the skin of some wild animal, he was let loose from a cage and attacked the private parts of men and women who stood bound to stakes. Suetonius does not approve. Suetonius also cannot stop writing about it. This is the thing about Nero that ancient historians demonstrate without meaning to. They are too outraged to stop recording, and so everything gets recorded, and so here we are, 2,000 years later, reading Suetonius being horrified. Let us talk about what else you do. You kill your mother. This takes 3 attempts. The first attempt involves a collapsing boat. You arrange for Agrippina to travel on a vessel designed to fall apart at sea. She survives. She swims to shore. She sends you a message informing you that she has had a narrow escape and is safe. You stare at this message for a while. Then you send assassins. They find her in her villa. She sees them coming and, according to Tacitus, who is possibly the most reliable of your ancient biographers, she points to her abdomen and says, "Strike here. Strike the womb that bore him." Whether she actually says this is uncertain. Tacitus was not there. What is certain is that she dies, and that you arranged it, and that you go to view the body afterward and make comments about its proportions, and that this detail makes it into multiple ancient sources because it is the kind of detail that, once recorded, refuses to be forgotten. You kill your first wife, Octavia. You accuse her of adultery, falsely, on the testimony of slaves obtained under torture, and have her executed. Her head is brought to Poppaea Sabina, who wanted her dead. You kick Poppaea Sabina to death, or almost death, when she is pregnant. She dies. You grieve. You have her deified. You marry Sporus, who resembles her. There is a psychology here that Suetonius and Tacitus and Cassius Dio circle around without quite naming. You are looking for something. You are looking for it in music and chariot racing and marriage and performance and the specific, total power that being emperor of Rome in the first century provides. The power to reshape reality according to your desires, to make the world match the image in your head, to have the person who looks like your dead wife actually be your wife, because you are the emperor of Rome, and if you say someone is your wife, then they are your wife. You are looking for it. You do not find it. Rome burns in 64 AD. The Great Fire of Rome destroys 10 of the city's 14 districts. Ancient sources preserve the image of you on your terrace, watching the city burn, playing your lyre and singing a composition about the fall of Troy. Modern historians dispute this. The image of Nero fiddling while Rome burns is probably not accurate. The fiddle did not exist, and there is reasonable doubt about whether you were even in Rome when the fire started. But here is the thing about images that stick. They stick because they fit. Because something about the image of you watching Rome burn and singing about Troy captures something true about the relationship between you and your empire. Something about the distance. Something about the performance. You blame the Christians for the fire. You execute them in large numbers, with methods that Tacitus, who does not like Christians and says so, describes as excessive even by the standards of Roman justice. You have them sewn into animal skins and fed to dogs. You use them as human torches to light your garden parties. Tacitus records this. Then he records his ambivalence. The Christians were guilty, he says, but the punishment aroused pity even so. Even Tacitus felt pity. You keep building. The Golden House, the Domus Aurea, is the palace you construct after the fire, covering over a third of Rome with a complex that includes a rotating dining room and a vestibule so large that it contained a colossus of yourself, 30 meters tall, that gives the Colosseum its name centuries later when it is built on the site. The Colossus looks like you. Everything, eventually, looks like you. This is what total power produces, a world that increasingly resembles the interior of one mind. The end comes in 68 AD. The governors revolt. The legions revolt. The Senate declares you a public enemy, the first emperor to receive that designation. The Praetorian Guard, which has made and unmade emperors before you and will again after you, abandons you. You flee Rome. You end up in a villa outside the city with a small group of freedmen who have stayed loyal not out of love, but out of inertia or calculation. You ask them to kill you. They refuse. You ask them to dig your grave first so you can see it, and you weep over it, and you keep saying phrases from Greek tragedies. Sources record the specific phrases. And then, when the horsemen who have come to bring you back to Rome for public execution are almost at the door, you stab yourself in the throat with a dagger. You do not do it cleanly. A freedman named Epaphroditus has to help push the blade. You die saying, sources record this, "What an artist the world loses in me." Whether you actually say this is uncertain. Whether you believe it is not. Sporus outlives you. He is taken by the next emperor, then passed to another man, then brought to the arena to play the role of a rape victim in a public spectacle. The ancient sources note that he kills himself rather than perform this. He was, in the end, more dignified than most of what Rome asked him to be. Pythagoras disappears from the record entirely. The Golden House is stripped, filled in, built over. The Colosseum is built on its lake. The Colossus is adapted, readapted, eventually melted down. The rotating dining room is excavated by archaeologists in the 19th century, who find the mechanism still intact. Your name becomes a word. Antichrist in Christian tradition. Tyrant in Roman tradition. A word people use when they want to say the worst version of power. And yet, Suetonius cannot stop writing about you. Tacitus cannot stop writing about you. Cassius Dio cannot stop writing about you. 2,000 years later, neither can we. Not because you were the worst. History has worse. Not because you were the most powerful. Rome had more powerful. Because you were the most completely, entirely yourself. Because you took the office of Emperor of Rome, the most powerful position in the Western world, and you used it to be exactly who you were. A musician who needed an audience. A man who needed to be loved. Someone who kept looking for the right shape for the thing he felt, and kept finding the wrong ones, and kept trying anyway. You married a man and called him your wife. You married another and wore the veil yourself. You sang in theaters and raced chariots, and built a palace with a rotating dining room. You burned Christians in your garden because they were convenient. You burned Rome, or didn't, and sang about Troy. And at the end, in a villa outside the city you had named yourself, you wept over your own grave and quoted Greek tragedy and asked your freedmen to kill you, and they wouldn't, and you had to do it yourself, badly, and someone had to help. What an artist the world loses. That is how it sometimes ends. Not with battles, not with the grand machinery of imperial collapse. With a dagger, a freedman's hand, and a line from a tragedy you chose yourself.